Lovely. So welcome everybody, and welcome to those who are listening back to this recording as well. Our session today is going to be really focusing on some saving strategies. So hopefully you might pick up some things that might be helpful for your own personal situations. What I've just asked those who are here live is just to share what they're studying in the chat, using the chat function, if that's possible. So Thea, Cecile and Amanda, if you're able to just type in what your field of study is or what you're studying at the moment with SCU, that would be great. So we can have that little bit of background. And as I understand, is it study break at the moment? You have a break from study at the moment? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, cool, lovely. So a great time to have this session and to give yourself a little bit of headspace to maybe think about your finances, which is a good thing. So thanks, Thea. So you've shared that you're doing a Master of Healthcare Leadership. That's brilliant, cool. So welcome, that's great background. Amanda, you're in teaching, fabulous. And Cecile, so you're doing early childhood education. Brilliant. That's really great. Cool. So we'll get started. And as I said, if you need to pop in and out, or if we've got other students we've got a couple of others attending now, I will just continue on. So big welcome to you all. And I like to just, with all of these pictures too, which is kind of representative of where you've just shared that your fields of study are focusing on, that this kind of demonstrates all the amazing work that you're all doing. I know you're very busy studying away, but not only studying, most of you will be working as well and managing life and family responsibilities as well. So I know life is very busy at the moment. So I really appreciate you coming along to this session tonight. And as you're aware, it's being recorded. So know that, yes, you'll have access to it after this evening. But Alison will send it off to you. So big welcome to everybody. Just important to, before we begin, to do our acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands from which we're all connecting in from today on this online webinar. If you'd like to share where you're connecting in from, that would be great. Just be nice just to know where we are all geographically located. I'm in northern New South Wales, just on the border of New South Wales and Queensland. And I pay my respects to the elders past and present and recognise and celebrate their connection and the role in caring for country over thousands of years. May their wisdom and strength be with us today as we work through our webinar tonight. So yes, if you'd like to share where you're connecting in with, that would be great. Using your chat again would be good. So we can get a bit of a sense of where we're all connecting in from. Just a little quick bit about myself. So my name's Liz McLardy. So I worked for Southern Cross University as a lecturer, as a unit assessor in accounting, teaching management accounting. So strategic management accounting is my sort of field of expertise. So I taught undergrad and postgrad. I'm a CPA, and so the first part of my career was in corporate accounting. So really helping businesses to manage their resources, their financial resources, and make plans and allocate those resources to achieve their strategic goals. So what I've sort of transitioned into the second part of my career is really around teaching and sharing this knowledge with, you know, up and coming accountants, but also that I've trained as a financial counsellor. So I consult with the SCPA in assisting managing webinars like this to share some, you know, financial literacy skills, and to also provide financial coaching as well. So that's something that maybe something you might be interested in engaging with me. We have free sessions available through the SCPA to students. So if there's something that we can talk more about that later, but that's a bit about me. Just a couple of the businesses and things that I've worked for. So a lot of corporate, you know, working for big companies. And now I'm currently working for Swinburne and also another institute in Melbourne. But I'm located in northern New South Wales. So lovely to see where everyone's from. So Cecile, you're in chilly Melbourne. Amanda and Thea both in Sydney. That's cool. Very good. And Sushama, Canberra. I used to live in Canberra, so that's lovely. So, and you're also looking forward to saving and earning money. Great. So that's good. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about that tonight. So really, really good. So thanks for sharing. Amanda and Thea, I'm not sure if you would have come across each other before. No, because you've got different fields of study. I thought that perhaps you're both in education, but likely not. But that's wonderful. And such a great thing that we can do now is study online. We can also share and connect with each other about cool topics like financial well-being as well. So that's really wonderful. So to get straight into tonight's topic now, I really want to stick to our time. Again, I know it's a Wednesday night, and you want to be getting as most as you can out of this session in short amount of time as possible as well, so you can get on with your evening. And I hope that I can provide you with something that's at least one takeaway that's going to be helpful to you. So we're going to cover a couple of different things. Firstly, we're going to look at I've kind of reduced it to this little sort of for a couple of words in terms of, because the focus is clearly, obviously, as you signed up for this, is all around saving strategies. But saving itself, we're going to talk a little bit more deeply about that as well, and what that actually means to you in your own particular situation. But to kind of simplify it, we're going to look at identify, which is identifying the expenses that you can kind of prioritize to look at whether there are saving opportunities. So it's really about identifying those, and we'll have a chat through that. Reducing is all about reducing those expenses, looking at ways we might be able to earn more money as well, and then just some innovations as well, if there's any other things that we can look at to sort of think outside the box about how we're managing our money that might make it more effective and efficient. Secondly, we're going to look at the importance of setting savings goals. So having really clear, tangible, achievable, everyone knows the SMART acronym, but really, really applicable here for when you're managing your money. What you'll find if you haven't come across me before, is my main message is really around simplification. When it comes to finances, we get so bombarded with so much information, so much stress, so many options of what we can buy, so many different deals that we should be going with, and most of the time we're left feeling really dissatisfied financially. So the key message I like to really try to convey is that where possible, simplifying and having a really pragmatic approach, straightforward, is going to be your best bet in terms of protecting your peace around how you feel about your money, and also the resulting dollar figure as well. So we're going to look at savings goals, and then also some ideas about how we can actually automate savings to make, once we've kind of got a plan for what it is that we're saving for, how much are we going to be setting aside each week or month, whatever it might be, to achieve that goal, how we can automate that. So then it just allows we can be consistent and then, really achieve those goals that we want to. Before I get started, it would be nice just also to check in with you, just because we've got the small group of the 5, which is lovely. I'm talking about savings. Does anybody is it that you're, it'd be nicest to indicate whether at the moment you're either, you're finding that you're spending everything that you earn. So are you at that point where you're just not able to save any money at all? Or is it that you're really wanting to save for something particular, and you may be you may have a bit of a buffer, but you're just not sure about how to manage it all. But yeah, I'd be really keen to know, like, how close are you to that point where you're kind of spending everything you earn? If you can indicate, if you're happy to share that, just to give us an idea of where you're at, that would be great. And does anybody have a particular goal that they're wanting to save for? We'll obviously get to that when we get to the section, but even at this starting point, does anybody have anything particular that they're saving for? Because I know I've worked with lots of... Amanda?
Well, I think at the moment for me, I'm just trying to save as much as I can for my future, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Just life savings and...
Yeah. So like just to give you that flexibility and options for the future, you just know that there'll be things that you'll need money for. So you just want to make sure that you've got something. Okay, cool. And we can talk more about kind of giving that a little bit more flesh as well, because at the moment, and most of us carry that kind of goal, but it can feel like it's unachievable. You don't really know how much you're trying to save or how to ever feel good about that or your progress. So certainly when we get to the second stage, I think that'll be helpful for you to kind of maybe give that, you might not have kind of given it some thought in terms of what that dollar value is, maybe even setting yourself a goal for the next year or 6 months. You know, how much could I save to kind of, keep yourself motivated, to feel like you're progressing towards that. So yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that too.
No worries. Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? I can't see anything else in the chat. But if you do have any other goals, that would be great, just to get a little bit of an idea about how you want to do that. So just to start off with, and I'm not, I'll get into some more detailed slides, but I've got a couple that are kind of really just to kind of prompt the thinking, and some of these are quite nice for that. I just pulled this one off, but it kind of comes back to like what I was saying as well, around, are you at that point, like this first part of this graph? The language is not necessarily what I would have chose, but Sushma is sharing that they're in that broke category where they're just spending everything that they earn. So thank you for sharing that, and there'll be others, I'm sure, and also those listening back, which will be able to relate to that as well, because I know that things are challenging, that things are expensive, not only housing, which is usually one of our biggest expenses, is really putting a lot of pressure on people, but everything else, the big top three are really, really challenging. And particularly when you're studying, your capacity to earn is limited, right? Because you still do need to dedicate time to your studies. And it's also then thinking about a little bit about the season that you're in. So you are in a season where that capacity at some point, once you finish studying, will be then available to be for earning money and increasing your income, if not, giving you a possibility to move into particular jobs. So sometimes it's also getting a perspective and thinking about the different phases and timeframes that you're in. But that's good to sort of get an idea. Sometimes like these visual representations can help us too. So certainly this top section isn't really where we want to be, because how do you feel, Sushma, when you say so that, that's the kind of category that you can see yourself in? How does it feel when you're in that? Interested to know what the emotions are when you're in that sort of situation.
Actually, it feels really bad to be in this situation.
Yes.
So I do have like a very limited earning, and I
Okay.
tend to, spend all of it. Even though
Okay.
I try to save some money, but with the expenses and all, so yeah, I'm not able to save any.
Yeah, no. Okay, cool. Yeah. And it's stressful, right? Because it's just like you're just on that edge. Do you have any savings at all that you have just as like an emergency fund or something, access to that?
No, I don't have any savings, and I'm an international student.
Okay.
And I also have a kid.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, which is hard, isn't it? And yes. So are you finding that you're able to, because I guess the scenario that's more challenging than this one is when you're in a situation where you have debt as well. Do you have like consumer debt, credit cards, or things like that you're trying to manage as well?
No, I do not have any credit right now.
Okay,
but,
that's good.
Yeah, I
that's
don't
good.
have any, because my husband is there to help. Yeah, we do not have any credit.
Yeah. Okay, well that's brilliant. So because there can be, if it's kind of thinking of a scale, that's much more of a challenging situation, because you need to kind of work out a way of getting rid of that debt first, and then when somebody's able to do that, it frees up money then that they were allocating to managing that debt to now, looking at the day-to-day life. Can I ask, and if I know that this is being recorded, so whatever you're comfortable, but are you renting here at the moment because you're an international student?
Yes,
yes,
we
you are
renting.
renting. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's good.
And
so
there is not much of help.
No.
As in like, yeah, the residents and the international student, like, expenses are different, so it's a bit hard for us.
Yes.
To survive here.
And you're in Canberra, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so is your husband studying as well at the moment, or is he?
No, he's a full-time worker.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he earns a good amount, but still with the kid, it's really hard, as we do not get any childcare subsidy.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And is your child, are they at school or are they at in child?
Right now he's with me.
Okay.
I only work evening shifts.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's
so
good.
that's how we are
good.
managing.
That's how you're balancing it. Yeah, no, I know
Yes.
it is very tough. And then, so once you finish your studies, what will that mean for you? Are you intending to stay in Australia, or are you wanting to head back? What do you?
For a few years we will be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other reason I'm because I have studied IT, but the main reason I'm in childcare industry is because where like I can take my child with me to the center.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so is that why you're studying? Is that what you're studying? Is childcare?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
studying graduate diploma.
Graduate diploma. Okay. So that's your intention. So your objective with your study is to then be
Yes,
able
that is
to.
one of the reason. Yes.
One of the reasons. Okay, lovely. Okay,
And
that's
also there
good.
is a good pay. So yeah.
Yeah, there's pay as well. Yeah. So and there's really important elements to think through. And sometimes we just don't get the opportunity to just give ourselves the space to think it through, but to be clear on what our objectives are at each sort of phase. So clearly you've come to study, you've got a clear objective to complete your study, to then move into different work, which will allow you to earn more money. And
Yes.
your son will also be
Yes.
looked after, which is great.
Yeah,
And then so you may not have an objective around buying a home here in Australia, or what are you? Not sure.
I don't think we will buy home here.
No, but it might sort of sounds a little bit similar to Amanda's situation in a way that you want to. So if you're in this scenario at the moment where you're just spending everything that you earn, that's stressful. That if you could save money, at least to be putting aside for a future, scenario of, you want to have at least. And what I would be sort of suggesting, and if you listen back to some of my other previous videos as well, there's a similar kind of order of things that I would sort of suggest you aiming for. And one, a healthy thing to have, which will give you more peace with your finances. So if you're in a situation where you don't have any savings and you're spending everything that you earn, there's a lot of stress associated with that. An expense might come up that's unexpected, and then you've got to find the money for that. And if you haven't got savings, that's a very stressful scenario. So what I would suggest is having is your savings goal at that stage would be all focused around putting money aside for an emergency fund, to building it up to be 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So that will give you a little bit of peace of mind that you've got that money. You put it aside in a high interest savings account that you can access at any point. But having that emergency fund would be what I would suggest would be your first savings goal. If you haven't got any consumer debt, so for those who have consumer debt, who may have credit cards, etc., any additional money that you can find, it's not so much about saving, but it's about getting rid of that consumer debt. But because you're not in that situation, the suggestion would be then to be building up an emergency fund. That's probably your next step, next key thing to do. So it kind of gives you that little bit of headspace, a little bit of peace around, knowing that, if something came up, we've got some money sitting there. And then after that, it would then, yes.
And also as an international student, we do not have much idea about like what are the accounts wherein we get like high interest rate, and what are the things like I have heard a lot of things like EFT to invest in some coins, but I do not have much idea about those.
And what I would be suggesting again is to keep it simple and a sort of a staged approach. It's very common for people to be feeling like, again, as I was saying at the beginning of this session, you can feel a lot of dissatisfaction when it comes to finances because there's so many options. Feels like everybody else is getting ahead. Somebody else invested in Bitcoin and now they're a millionaire. They don't have to work. But that's very unlikely, and unless you know somebody personally, it's probably not true. So it's really important to come back to, and I know it sounds really boring, but when it comes to our financial lives, is just to be really simple and pragmatic. And it's really where you can protect your focus to make sure that it's just about you. This is your situation. This is how much you're earning. This is how much you're spending. That's what you've got control over. So what I would again be suggesting is not trying to jump in and invest. Any investments that you would be making, would be for, you know, at least a 5-year horizon. But you haven't got an emergency fund yet. You haven't built up to have your, so it's certainly trying to get your emergency fund done first. And if you're
Okay.
earning money in Australia, you should have a superannuation fund. Does your husband have a
Yes,
superannuation?
we do.
So
Yes.
yeah, so that's money that's already being put aside and invested in shares, and you can look into that. That's, you know, if you want to look at what the superannuation fund is and maybe look at whether you might want to change the investments or the portfolios, whatever it is, but that's already investing that's going on for you. So already you're involved in that. But I would be suggesting that, yeah, making sure you've got that emergency fund first, and then looking at, you know, building up money for, you know, the next thing for people is really having a home, and having that security. But obviously it depends on everyone's situations and particular situations. But yeah, having emergency fund, building up for a deposit for a home or a proportion towards that. And then it may be other things. I've worked with a couple of postgrad students that want to move into building their own businesses and things like that. So it's also then that could be another goal for somebody. But certainly having that security of an emergency fund is really important. So what I'd love, Sushma, is if, you know, if you're in this situation currently at the moment, and I'm hoping other people are getting some benefit from this conversation, but if you're like at the top of this diagram where you're just spending everything, what we can hope is that we can, from tonight, if there's some ideas of things that might be able to just give you a little bit more, you know, buffer, and anything that's extra you can start channeling towards your emergency fund. And the suggestion there again is any money that you need to access or would want access to in the short term, I'd be putting into just a high interest savings account. You know, they're earning around 5.5% at the moment, so that there's lots of them available. Even the bank that you're with at the moment may have a high interest savings account available, and it would be just setting up a separate account. And once you've kind of worked out maybe where you've got some savings opportunities, sending those, you know, assigning those savings to that savings account so you don't spend them, it would be really important. Does that sound like a good sort of idea?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah.
That's okay. So what I'll do, I'll continue. So I guess we've just looking at this diagram is what the second half of the diagram is saying, rich. And again, it wasn't mine. The language is not what I would use. But that kind of idea that you're not spending everything you earn is really where we want to get to, so that we can have money available to either, you know, build up a savings account, build up a fund for buying a home. It may be a business, a holiday, whatever the thing is that you're saving for. And we'll talk about how important it is to define that in a minute. And the two key things, again, with a little bit of a silly picture here, but the two key levers that anybody has available to them in terms of that equation is to either increase, you know, what you're earning or reduce what you're spending. And then that will give you that margin or that bit of buffer that you can then allocate to saving. So it's looking at our own individual situations, and we can very easily, you know, sometimes just get stuck in the way that we do things. So it might be the job that we're doing. We just, you know, don't really have the capacity to kind of think outside the box, but it may be just, you know, considering, is there any way that I could increase my income? You know, are there any promotions available? Could I, you know, just have a chat to my boss about, you know, is there any projects coming up or any positions that I could move into? Or is there any possibilities of, you know, you don't need to be constantly looking for new jobs all the time, but, you know, considering if you've been in a role for a while, would it be worth looking at whether there is any other positions available that could, you know, you could earn more. And also we'll look at, and we'll get into more of this in detail too, but it's looking at, you know, are there other possibilities of work that you could do in addition to what you're doing, just to bring in a little bit extra money that you can channel towards your savings. And then obviously, yeah, looking at how you can spend less as well. So the key that the first thing I wanted to sort of, I guess, a little bit of a systematic approach that you could take to this if you're trying to identify savings, is, you know, identifying what are the biggest costs in your life currently. And then, identifying, working from biggest to smallest, that's going to give you the most opportunity. Is there anything that I can change? And I know some of these things can feel hard. You might have just signed a rental agreement, or you might be partway through one. But it's worth kind of questioning and considering all the elements of your spending and looking at, is there any opportunity for it to change? Here we've just got a graph of, this was just a generic split of what most people in Australia, where the breakdown of expenditure is. So most of it's in housing, if that's a mortgage or rent, looking at, what are the things that I could influence or change there? Could I change my mortgage? Could I refinance to a different interest rate to lower that? The rent that you're paying, and I know this is a really challenging topic, but is there somewhere else that I could rent for cheaper? Or could I, if I own my house, could I rent out a room or a car park or something that's in my current housing that could actually bring in some money? So thinking about just sort of creatively, and it kind of brings in the innovative part of this as well, just thinking about, are there any other options? Or you might have a shed where somebody wants to store a boat, or you never know. So just kind of take a little bit of time just to think about your housing situation as, is there anything that you could unlock there in terms of reducing the cost or leasing out a part of it to bring in some extra income, because that housing is the biggest one. Is everybody renting at the moment? Or does anybody own their place? Anyone want to share that?
I just live at home with my family.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant. So that's
That helps.
a great help. Yes, that's
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, so you don't need to renegotiate with your landlord.
No,
So
no.
that's really nice. Do they, is your family charging you, or is it completely free?
Like they don't charge me, but I do like offer to pay for things here and there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
nice.
just to
Okay, cool.
contribute.
Just
Yeah.
to contribute a bit. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And such a nice leg up as well. So but as a parent, I know just having a child appreciate it verbally is amazing. So yeah, don't feel like you have to overly compensate in the financial. Just having that genuine appreciation, which you probably will continue to appreciate when you get older as well. You're like, oh my goodness, that was so nice.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And so Ray sharing that that you're at home as well, which is nice. Yeah, and that's a real opportunity in that time, which is great, because you should be both in a situation. Would I be correct that you should be, unlike Sushil's scenario, you're not spending more than you earn? Or I actually don't know your working situation. So you're both working while you're studying?
Yeah, I'm working at the moment.
Yep.
I think for me, like at the moment, it's not going that great in terms of like, because I'm not working that much, but I
Yep.
am probably saving just that little bit extra.
Cool. That's great.
But
Yeah.
usually I'm like, if I were working full time, I'm usually a pretty good saver. But it's just a
Yes.
bit difficult at the moment.
Yeah. But even the fact that you have that saving mentality and tendency and attitude, that it is a real strength. So that's great. Can I ask, where are you popping your savings at the moment? Are you putting them in a high interest account, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I recently founded a high interest account.
Cool.
And I've just started using that now.
Yeah, great.
But
No,
yeah.
that's really cool. So, and if you kind of structured it, so you've got like is there a system to it? Like, are you putting aside a certain amount, or does your income kind of vary depending on how much you work?
Yeah, it kind of varies.
Yeah.
But I think I do need to kind of have a more structured,
Yeah.
yeah, it needs to be more structured for sure.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And what you'll see in a couple of slides, I've got just a bit of a snapshot of like how you could do a budget, which would probably be helpful for everybody. I do one every year as well, and then check it off throughout the year, because that's the time where you get to sit down. And I know people say the word budget and their stomach churns and they're like, oh, because they feel like they're not going to have to give up stuff. But it's actually the opposite, because you're choosing a purpose for every dollar that you earn. You're giving that dollar before it happens. So you're deciding, right, I'm going to earn $300 this week. how am I going to spend it? You know, what's important to me? So it kind of gives you that driver's seat feeling, which is really, really good. I'm just checking the chat too, Sushama, about the high yield savings account for international students. I'm not sure. I know of, like, there's lots of different, I'm not sure if they're what the terms and conditions are in terms of your situation with international students. Ray's just sharing that HSBC and Commonwealth do they have specific products, do they, particularly for international students? I won't be surprised. But it's really making sure that, yeah, you're reading those terms and conditions, and making sure that you meet all the criteria that's relevant. But I can take that offline if you like, and have a bit of research if you like as well, and see, and I can always come back to you. That's a good idea. So I guess a starting point, at least to get us thinking, you know, if we're trying to, because we've got a lot of expenses, we don't want to be constantly feeling like, you know, dissatisfied, like, am I getting the best deal with my internet or my electricity or whatever it might be. Kind of systematically working through each of your expenses is really helpful. And this is kind of an approach, if you just sort of think, okay, what's my biggest expense? Go from biggest to smallest, you're going to make that biggest impact. There might be the biggest opportunity, I guess what I'm saying. You know, it's, again, with transportation, if that's a car or buses, whatever your transportation is, looking at that and kind of thinking about what are some of my options. So this is kind of a little bit, this is kind of moving into, like, again, identifying what are those expenses, what am I currently spending my money on, which is a really important question to be able to answer. A lot of us just don't have a handle on that because it's all going through electronically and it just feels like money just runs away. But what I'd really encourage you to do is, even before you do a budget, is to get a real clear snapshot of where did my money go over the last 12 months. So it might take you a little bit in terms of, you know, doing your transaction listing from internet banking. But I would really encourage that. And if you download it and then give it a structure, so, you know, something similar, this is just a template that I've used before that I'll often use with students if we're working together on it. What you'll do is you'll sum everything together. So it might be that you've got, for our Australian students, you might have Centrelink payments, you might have a part-time job. So you can look back at that transaction listing and see, okay, how much money did I earn over the last 12 months? And you can look to how much money did I spend? So calculating from that, you know, you can sort in that transaction listing. It just gives you an output that you can open up in Excel. And if you just sort it by name, you'll see all of the transactions you may have made at Woolworths or at the BP petrol station. And then you can sum them together to get a total, and get an idea of, okay, how much did I spend on groceries? How much did I spend eating out? So just checking the chat here as well about, do you have any great financial applications for summing all the monthly costs? I don't. A lot of the banking apps have this already. They will give you, but they may not have categorized your expenses correctly. So you kind of need to do that. There's lots of apps out there that do connect in with your bank and they'll give you a direct feed. But for this activity, I would encourage you, personally, I don't like to do that. I feel like my banking information is at risk, even the ones that, you know, tell you that they're not. I like to kind of go old school and just download my transaction listing in Excel, and I will use Excel. I don't keep track of it all the time because once I've set my budget and I've set up how I'm going to keep to those boundaries, so I use different accounts for different things. I only then need to check in every quarter just to make sure that everything's ticking by. So depends on what you like doing. If you want to be checking it off every day or every week, it can get a little bit intense and time consuming. But for this particular activity, I wouldn't even recommend using an app. I just, and even the process of doing it, I've done this with students before, you'll actually find the process of downloading it, sorting your transactions, summing them together, entering them in, even though it takes a little bit of time, that time's really, you actually start to see like, wow, I actually spent a lot of money on whatever it might be. Everyone has something, and they this is like a big light bulb moment for them, because like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that Netflix cost so much, or they didn't know that they ate out so much. They're like, oh, I only thought I got a coffee, you know, once or twice a week, but then they like spent $2,000 on coffees, which is not a problem, but it's up to you to decide if that's where you want your money to go. If you love it and that's your thing, by all means do it. But this kind of exercise will really help you to understand where your money's going. So Shema, you might be the same as well. So you know, just having a good understanding of where everything is going before you start making any changes, because you want to know, okay, what's the lay of the land first. So I would certainly, go away. Hopefully everyone may be inspired after this webinar to go away and do this maybe in the next week, if you've got the study week off, just even out of curiosity to see, you know, how much am I spending on everything. So once you've done that, then you can start to look at, okay, what do I want to reduce? So if there are things in there that you kind of think, oh gosh, you know, if I'm trying to achieve this particular savings goal, if I'm trying to save, you know, $20,000 as my emergency fund, or I'm wanting to save $50,000, you know, for my home deposit, I need to be saving X amount per week. The way you can find that is by decreasing expenses. So a couple of, you know, suggestions and things. Some of these may not be new to you, but may just be a reminder or a prompt. Wherever possible, negotiate. So I would be saying, you know, once a year, looking at all of those expenses that you have that you've signed up for. So if it's electricity or internet, those just that become direct debits, to review them at least once a year and have a little bit of a look around in the market to see if you can find a better rate or a better deal. You don't need to do it constantly. So part of financial stress is that we get marketed to, and there's all these different rates and deals, and we never feel like we're happy with what we've got. But I would just be looking at once a year. You might make a month, you know, if it's money May or negotiation November, whatever you want to call it. Just have a point in the year where you dedicate time to just looking at those particular costs that you've kind of you've signed up for. So yeah, review them and shop around. As I shared before already, you know around housing, considering roommates, negotiating rent. I know that's really challenging, but renting out car spaces, or as I said, boat spaces or storage that people might want, can be helpful. Looking at, you know, is there any possibilities in where you're, but I know with two of you at home, that's not really a possibility. But looking at, you know, groceries and dining. So obviously, you know, having a meal plan, cooking at home, we know how expensive eating out can be. And particularly in a phase where you are studying and you don't have that capacity to earn as much, any meal that's out is, it's probably 3 or 4 times as much as what you could make at home. So just eating at home a lot. I know that the enjoyment of going out and being out and doing something different, you know, thinking of other ways of doing that, you know, if it's, you know, through picnics or taking a nice flask with you of hot chocolate or coffee as you go for a walk, and really coming together with, you know, if you are in a if you're married or have kids, families, situations, or if you've got friends, you know, talking about doing those things together. So replacing those expensive activities that you might have just got into the habit of doing, like having breakfast on a Sunday or whatever it might be, but they can be really expensive, or they're actually just a really good opportunity for you to save money. So you could say, okay, why don't we just meet at the beach and we'll, you know, take a drink with us, or get a drink from IGA or from 7-Eleven, and instead of having to pay, you know, really, and it's just for a phase, you know, while you're studying. Obviously using coupons and discounts and things like that can be really helpful as well if you can find them. And shopping online, particularly for groceries, really helps you to stick to a budget, because once you've got everything like at the checkout physically and it's all gone through and it, you know, rings up to be a bigger number than you were hoping, it's kind of hard to then say, oh, okay, I need you to take back some of these items. Well, you could do that. But online shopping, a lot of people find is much easier, because if you've got a set budget for yourself that you've decided, okay, I'm spending $200 a week on food, you can then see your bill before you've even purchased it, and then you can decide, okay, I don't really need those extras or whatever it might be. So that online shopping. Does anybody else use online shopping and find that useful for helping you stick with the budget? And even it can be a little bit more efficient, particularly those maybe with kids. I know it helps me a lot, because your shopping bill is only likely to go up if you go with kids, particularly hungry kids, or if you're hungry yourself. So don't go shopping when you're hungry. That's always a good one. And transport as well, looking at public transport versus owning a car, particularly those that might have, if you've borrowed money or you have a car loan, can be very expensive. And looking at, is there a scenario where you could actually sell that car and get rid of that loan? Are there options around taking public transport that actually get you out of that debt, and then allow you to start saving money and moving towards a more healthy financial position? Even carpooling, walking short distances, or looking at, if you're somebody who goes to the gym or likes to exercise, is there a way that rather than doing that and spending money, even for a period of time, that you could, save that money and then, exercise as a way of getting to where you want to go? Might be an option. And obviously the other side of the lever that we were talking about too is like, ways that we can increase our income. So as I talking about previously is, are there promotions, at work? Is there anyone that you can talk to? Or, what would you need to do to be able to move into a more higher paying job, if that's a possibility for you? And I know many of you of what you're doing right now is part of that. So the study that you're doing is likely to moving you towards that, which is great. But maybe the jobs that you've got on the side, still, is there anything in that you could, still work the same hours, but you might be able to earn a little bit more? Is there any additional part-time work that you could do? And now that you're studying as well, depending on how far you're through, is there any marking or assessing work that you might be able to get access to, by contacting your unit assessors or course conveners, looking at whether there's any opportunity for that kind of work as well that might be possible in the areas that you're studying. Freelancing opportunities. So depending on, what you're studying. I have a student a couple of years ago who was studying something different, but was also very, was a great musician. So looked at different possibilities around earning money as a sort of a casual music teacher, tutor for high school students. And that was a great source of income for them. Is there any work like that, or consulting work? If this is your sort of postgrad study, maybe you've had some time working already, that maybe in a field that you could consult or do something that could just earn you more money by working less as well. And then linking in with that same idea around sort of the music and tutoring, that kind of thing. Is there a hobby or something that you do that, that you could actually make money out of as well? That could be a possibility to turn that in. Tutoring in your field as well, even the fields in which you're studying. Is anybody doing, just to feel like that could be a possibility for you? Like in what you're studying, could you provide tutoring to other students, or are there students maybe even high school students that maybe you may be able to provide tutoring to as well? Or any ideas of Amanda?
Yeah, no, definitely. I've just recently had an opportunity that so I'm going to start doing some tutoring soon.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
that's
for
really
high school
great.
students. So
high school students, yeah, great. And which what subjects are you going to be doing? I was just trying to look at what you're, because you're doing education, right?
Yes, I haven't discussed that yet, but like,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's really great. And have you established an hourly rate yet for what you're going to charge?
Yes. So
Okay,
we
cool.
discussed that, and hopefully I'll get some more information.
Great. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. Cool. And are you going to be doing it are you going to go to their house? Will you need to like include transportation, or will they come to you? How will it work?
So at the moment I think I'm going to do it through a company.
Cool.
So yeah.
Okay.
And I'll do that like in an office location.
Okay.
And if I'm more comfortable from there, I might see if I can do my own
I was going to say, because then
Yeah.
you'll get to keep the margin that they're taking. But I
Yeah.
think that's a brilliant idea to transition anyway. Then you
Yes.
might get a little bit more experience, get a bit of an idea of how it works, what the rates are like as well. And then you'll feel more confident when you then go and do it yourself.
Yeah.
About what you're providing, and that's brilliant. But yeah, but good to think about. And I'm not sure about how you're set up at home, or even if that's a possibility, or if there's like a library room that you can use, or whatever it might be. But just thinking through, because I've know from working with other students that it's like that transportation time and getting to a student, and maybe if they cancel, all of those kind of things to think through, just to make sure that you don't lose out on those as well. So yeah, work out an arrangement that's going to work for you. That would be really brilliant. So yeah, that's cool. So that's definitely a great option, and also aligns with what you're doing. Are you going on to teach after you finish your postgrad study?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to be starting casual teaching soon as well.
Okay, great. And you get paid for that, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's great. So that's cool. So that's only like on the right slide as well, right here, increasing your income, so that you're doing all those right things, just to kind of really unlock some of those earning potentials. So that's brilliant. And it's all aligned as well, and all complementary to the career path you're on. So yeah, it sounds really, really good. Very cool. And then, yeah, as I've mentioned before as well, if it was that you owned your home, and obviously if the circumstances are right as well, people can rent out a space in their house, which can be good. Also, if you're just looking at, your first goal of, which I would be recommending for everybody if they haven't already, is having that emergency fund and establishing, okay, how much is that? So you need to work out what is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And that activity that you would have just done where you looked back 12 months and looked at, okay, what did I spend my money on? You can divide that by 4 and get an idea, okay, that's a quarter. What's a quarter of that? How much do I want to set aside? Maybe you want to set aside half a year's worth of expenses. So get an idea, get a quantum. No, okay, it's $20,000 or it's 30,000, whatever it is. Then you're wanting to build that up. So the quicker you can do that, the sooner you can move on to your next goal. And then this is where, selling assets can also be helpful. So if you're wanting to, and this is also potentially, and I'm trying to speak to a lot of different people's financial situations. So if you were in debt as well, if you had personal debt, that I would be certainly looking at that as well to see, is there anything that you can sell to really pay off that debt as quickly as possible to reduce that cost. So that's, yeah, looking at that income side of things. And I think we've had, so this is kind of then thinking outside the box, looking at different ways of doing things. I'm cautious of the time too, just to get through everything. But here I'll just, similar kind of things to looking at, which you're likely to have looked at, but think about whether you've really looked at them, because sometimes we go, oh yeah, no, I haven't really done this or that, the energy efficient appliances, unplugging when they're not in use. It's worth getting into some of these little habits that don't take very long. So just before bedtime, unplugging everything and then I know it can sound like a hassle, but once you've done it, it does save you. So little tricks like that can be helpful. And obviously be aware of, borrowing things as opposed to buying them, really questioning whether you need the thing when you're going out to buy things, and sharing subscriptions with friends and family as opposed to everybody having the same, having separate ones. Being able to sort of do basic things yourself and learn some of those skills as well, instead of, having to phone out for somebody to pay for those. And looking at, obviously old and recycled items as well, trying to give life to something that you might have, as opposed to, we get bombarded by images of, these fancy houses and furniture and the way people live. But just being able to, instead of thinking, oh, I need a new this or that, look at, well, what could I do with what I've got, as opposed to just jumping in and spending money. So I wanted to quickly move into how important it is to set a savings goal. So as I've said, I think it's 3 or 4 times now. Number one, which I've actually got got here as well. This was just an example. So here what you can see on this spreadsheet is what I've called my financial resources. And I find this really helpful to do well, I've got it set up here in the picture as being monthly, which you could do, but it really helps you to track your progress towards particular goals. But it also shows you exactly what your financial situation is at any given point in time. So again, this isn't a fancy app. There's no quick way of doing it other than going into your accounts. So in this kind of example that I've laid out here, I've just got a simple scenario of somebody with a debit account, a high interest account. They've got some money in a just in case, like an emergency fund. They've got some money in superannuation. They've got a credit card, which is what they are owing, and they've got a HEX balance. So overall, we can see that they're negative in terms of their financial resources, but that's the situation, that's their current situation. And it can be really helpful to go through this process and just sit with your current financial situation and just go, right, this is where we are. This is the money that we own, and this is what we owe. And then looking at, what are my goals? Based on this, what are my goals? And really important to have at least 1 or 2 clear goals for the next 12 months that you're working towards. I know some of them may be harder. So Amanda was sharing, she wasn't quite clear what the money's going to be used for. If you don't know what it's going to be used for, I'd still have a quantum, so you know what your progress is, and make that goal realistic. So once you've had a look at, okay, what's all the money coming in and going out, based on that, and maybe some of the savings that you could unlock, maybe potentially income that you could increase, can I save $100 a week? If that's what you can do feasibly, then you would be setting your goal to be then working towards your $5,200, in the next 12 months. So what I would do is then set up, see at the right-hand side, I've got December and I've got the goal figure. I would be saying maybe that's your just in case fund. Maybe you want to build that up to be $5,000. So then for the months leading up to that, you can see how you're tracking towards achieving that goal. So I wouldn't have any more than 3 goals in a 12-month period. I think it's quite complicated. Thinking already that knowing that when you're earning money is going into your superannuation. So that's kind of a set and forget thing. You'll be having your investing going on in there. But it might be that as you can see here, this person's goal might be that they want to pay off all of their high interest debt by, that next 12 months. And they're saving for a holiday, and their holiday figure is $5,000. So once you've got those 3 kind of clear goals of what you're trying to aim for, you can then, start to track your progress towards it. So each month or each couple of months, you would do this exercise and you'd fill out this kind of template and say, right, where am I based on the previous month? How have I gone? Yes, we've improved. I'm tracking towards that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everyone? Can you see how that might be helpful? These noddings, that's good. Thank you. That's lovely. And my big message here, although I don't know, it doesn't sound like this is an issue for anyone that's shared so far, but stop using credit cards. If you want to save money, this is the habit that needs to change. So stop using your credit cards, cut them up, pay off the debt, make sure you make all your minimum payments, get rid of that debt. I had done a webinar about the debt management earlier, so you'll see that in the resources for the SCPA if you want to go back to that one, but there's a whole webinar about it, but that will be costing you a lot of money. And make sure you only buy things that you have money for. And you can see here that I've circled the top reason why people use credit cards is for emergencies. So that's why I'm really encouraging you to build up that emergency fund. So that never needs to be a possibility for you. You've got your emergency fund there. If something comes up, you've got the money for it. You buy the washing machine that's just broken or whatever it is, and then you build your emergency fund up again, and that you're self-sufficient. So really important. So once you have those savings goals set, like we kind of looked at in that previous slide, 3 as a maximum, look at automating them. So you don't even have to think about it. So if you know that you can save $100 a week, as I just shared, maybe you're going to split that between 3 different goals, or maybe it's between 2 goals, however it is for your particular situation. But I would be encouraging you to have that directly deposited. So knowing when you get paid to then, have an automatic amount. And I know, like Amanda shared, that if you've got varying income, that can be a bit tricky, but it might be that maybe you do that automatic transfer. You might get paid weekly, but maybe you just do it once a month when you've kind of worked for a month, and then on average over a whole month, I should be able to save whatever the amount is. Yeah, have those amounts going into your savings, and have separate accounts. Have your high interest saver for your emergency fund, and then you might have another one for your holiday. You should be able to have set up accounts that don't cost you anything, so you can name them different things and have access to them, so you can kind of order them and have that clear structure. I don't think there's anything else new there on that slide. Okay, cool. So that's kind of brought me to the end, which is good. We've got 3 minutes to go. Is there any other questions anybody wants to ask at this stage, or anything else that you would like to share? I wanted to have a little bit more of an opportunity to kind of, and I think though through some of our conversations, we've probably heard of different people's situations and maybe how they're managing things. But is there anything else that anyone would like to ask or to share before we sort of close off the session? No. No, all good. And I'm happy to hang around if there is anything particular anybody wants to have a bit of a chat through. I did just want to bring up as well that if you do want to get in touch with the SCPA, it's skills@scpa.net.au. If you would like to do any of those activities with me, I can help you in terms of looking at getting an idea of, what was your last 12 months? What did it look like? Putting all of that together, or putting a budget together, or even looking at, how are you spending your money? Is there anything that I could look at, or we could brainstorm together any opportunities? So you can get in contact with SCPA to organize a free session with me. There's no strings attached. So every student's allowed 6 sessions. It's just a nice resource really that the SCPA's kind of put together. So yeah, happy to chat with you individually. I know all of this is very personal as well, and it really depends on your particular situations. So yeah, please feel free to reach out if that's something you feel would be helpful. And then I'd just like to also finish up that you can join up to be a member of the SCPA as well, and it gives you early access to events like this, or get notified of things. So sometimes that can be a nice thing to you may already be a member, but might be good to get involved with as well. So has that been helpful? Is there anybody want to share maybe one thing that was helpful for them tonight, or a takeaway that might have helped, or a new thing that they hadn't thought of?
Well, definitely the budgeting.
Okay, cool.
That really helps. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
cool.
you.
That's all right. No worries, Amanda. Nice to catch up with you. And thanks, Sushil. Thank you for your kind message. It's lovely to have you along as well. And I know, yeah, everyone's situations are different. And it's not until you kind of get into the detail of your own situation but it's really helpful just having quality data. I know which all of you will be aware of, from studying as well, but if you've got quality data from which you're making a decision, you're going to make really far better decisions. So it's all about arming yourself with the right information, and the right information is, your financial situation. So how much am I earning? What am I spending my money on? And then taking a step back and saying, okay, can I change any of it? And looking at those, the income and expense levers, what can I change? And then deciding, how am I going to spend my money? And that's, yeah, just kind of having that realization that you are in control. Cool. Great. I'm glad everyone's, hope you get excited about setting an emergency fund. makes you feel really good that, you know, things can happen and you're ready. You've got that buffer, you've got that, you know, that pillow to fall on, so to speak. So very cool. I'd be very, very keen for all of you to get that emergency fund set up. And thanks, Ray, for your message too. Very nice to have you along tonight as well. Fabulous. Thank you, Sushma. Lovely to have you all. And yeah, I'm glad that you got something out of tonight's session, and it was great to meet you. And hopefully we'll catch up again, if it's not at another webinar, maybe one-on-one. But I hope you all have a lovely evening and enjoy the rest of your study break as well. Very well-earned study break. And yeah, keep enjoying your studies. And we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you, Liz.
Lovely.
Thank you,
Thank
Liz.
you. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye. You take care too.